Hello and welcome back to A Dorm Divided on KSTM, the Storm 88.9. I'm Jake Brend. Along with me again, we have Aaron Price. We watched a lot of basketball this weekend. How was your weekend with, I guess, the best weekend of the year?
It was fun, full of excitement. Yeah, pretty much all day. Watched basketball Friday and Saturday because you got about 4 games. During those days, you got about 4 games going at a time. And then Sunday and Monday, they start off slower, but then towards the end of the night, then
You get
got
three
about,
at a time.
yeah, you
Though.
get about 3 at a time. So yeah, it was eventful. It was fun. It's the favorite part of the year, or my favorite part of the year at least, basketball wise. Got to see a lot of good games. Got to see a lot of upsets too. Yeah, it's kind of a unique bracket. It was good to get everything in, like because we didn't get it last year. So yeah, it was good. It felt back to normal. Got to see some fans. Got to see some sadness. Got to see some madness. That's what it's all about. And so it was good to get back to it.
Yeah, as I'm looking at the bracket right now, I watched pretty much, I think, at least a little bit of every single game. The one I watched the least was the UCLA Abilene Christian game, just because it was a blowout from the start. But even then, I still watched about 10 minutes of it. I didn't get to watch that much of Loyola and Georgia Tech because we had practice
Mhm.
during it. But yeah, as I look at it, I think I watched every game other than Oregon VCU, which was maybe the most noteworthy game of the weekend.
Yeah, yeah, that was the one that didn't get played. So
VCU had a couple positive cases and
yeah.
had to withdraw before that. But how was your bracket looking?
Not good. I all the upsets that I picked, didn't happen, and then the ones that I didn't pick happened. The only one I got right was Ohio over Virginia, and I just felt like that was pretty easy. I thought the lock upset was going to be Winthrop over
Same
Villanova.
here.
That didn't happen, and so yeah, I guess I picked UCLA over BYU, but I thought Michigan State was going to win that game, so I just in my mind I thought Michigan State was going to do it, not UCLA. So,
Yeah,
but other than that, not very good.
as I looked through the bracket, I picked California Santa Barbara over Creighton, which didn't hit. I did pick Ohio over Virginia, that hit. The next region, I had Greensboro over Florida State, which did not land. I had on the other side, I had Winthrop over Villanova, which did not happen. And then Purdue losing, I missed that one also. I had Utah State in my Sweet 16. They lost in the first round to Texas Tech. And then on the other side of the bracket, I had San Diego State all the way in the Elite Eight, which didn't happen, and I had Morehead State upsetting West Virginia. So I went like 1 for 7
Yep.
on my upset picks. But that's all March is. I'm
Yeah.
in last place of our bracket group. Actually, second to last. I'm beating Luke now, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
Luke's terrible. Luke's bracket's really bad.
Yeah, Luke had pretty much every Elite Eight team out, I think, except Gonzaga,
Yeah, Gonzaga's like his only Elite Eight team left. Maybe.
which is
Yeah,
just
that's it.
awful.
Yeah, that's terrible.
But yeah, it was a fun weekend of basketball. What was the biggest surprise of the weekend for you? I know that there were, as always, upsets, but which one came out of left field the most, do you think?
Um, I think you got to go with Oral Roberts over Ohio State. I think that's pretty much everyone's kind of surprise. But if you, because they were surprised coming out of the Summit League in the first place, I don't think they were. They weren't the number one seed.
They
in
were
that.
the fourth seed.
Yeah, they were the 4th seed. So they were just a shock. They've been a shocker since, the Summit League conference tournament. Another one I was surprised by. I didn't think Abilene Christian was gonna beat Texas. Texas was playing well. They had just won the Big 12 championship. They were riding high, and they just came out and played a bad game. They had a questionable call there at the end.
Turn the ball over, I think,
Yeah.
24 times.
You can't when you come out and you just can't predict stuff like that. Like that's why it's so hard. But I was probably more because Abilene Christian they didn't play particularly well. They scored 52 points. Just Texas turned it over all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oral Roberts comes out and scores 80 on you, and you just have they don't play great defense, but they're also a really small school.
You
But
you have to stop Max Amos.
yeah, Amos and Obenar, the forward.
Mm-hmm.
So they got a duo coming at you. That's I think the highest scoring duo in the NCAA. So when you have those two guys, that's tough to stop. So I think it was more of a shock for them to make the Sweet 16 than anything, let alone the first round. But here they are in the Sweet 16. Got a tough game against Arkansas. But yeah, I would have to go with Oral Roberts as my surprise.
No 15 seed has ever made it to the Elite Eight.
Nope.
So Florida Gulf Coast is the only other 15 seed to make it to the Sweet 16, and
Yep.
who did they have their run ended by? I want to say it might have been Villanova or something like that.
I don't know.
But they beat Georgetown and San Diego State to get there, I remember. But yeah, Oral Roberts just looks really good.
They run their offense through two guys, and
Mhm.
that's just how they buy through it. Like that's just how they do it.
Their strategy is stop Amos or you're going to lose.
Yep.
Because he went off for 29 in the win over Ohio State, and I think he had a little less in the win over Florida in the second round, but I can look here, which was, I think, an awesome game. The Oral Roberts Florida game was just awesome.
Yeah, it was a good game.
Amos had, sorry, my computer's being slow. He had 26 in that game, 12 of 12 from the free throw line, which is just absolutely huge. Oral Roberts was a very big surprise. How about Loyola Chicago? The Ramblers are
Yeah,
back.
that wasn't obviously it wasn't. I wasn't surprised to see them make it past the first round. And like now that I think about it, like I'm kind of mad at myself because thinking about it, just thinking about past future brackets, how often do you see teams playing really well, like just that are playing really well in March, like win their conference championship, whatever, playing hot for about 2 weeks? How often do we see them actually go far in the tournament? You never see it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened with Texas and Illinois. And I had both of those teams going pretty far, and I should have never did it. I was talking to a buddy back home, and he's like, yeah, Illinois is going to lose this game. You don't play well. You can't play well for this long. They're playing too well to win. And yeah, Loyola came out and beat them, and it was just like, wow, like the only team that is playing well, that's played well the whole year would have been Gonzaga. So that was an easy pick.
Baylor.
Yeah, that was an easy pick to go by. And even Baylor, like I had Baylor going to Elite Eight, but I didn't think there was going to be a team that beat them either. But I don't know. That's just, I don't know if that's come by a huge surprise to me because they're just back in 2018. They kind of set an example right there. They kind of put themselves in the picture, so that they should always be a threat to teams. And I think they would have made a run last year if there were a tournament. They got Krutwig this year, the
Cameron
big fella.
Krutwig is awesome.
Yep. So, yeah, that's no shock to me, and I would not be shocked to see them make the Final Four again this year.
So Loyola upsetting Illinois was not shocking in the least to me, but the fashion that they did it. Illinois didn't lead the entire game, and every time that Kofi Cockburn would go down the floor and score, Krutwig would come right back. And Krutwig you're going to look back at this game in 10 years and you're not going to see anything special, but he had a 19-12-5 performance, but it was a dominant 19-12-5.
Yeah.
He was in complete control of the game. He was on the team, on the Final Four team, but played a much smaller role behind Clayton Custer and the other guard. But Porter Moser has established himself as one of the best coaches in college basketball, and it'll be interesting to see if he takes the Mark Few route and just builds a power at a mid-major, if he just waits it out, because you would think he's in line for whatever job that he would ever want.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
If Coach K makes the decision in the next 2 years to retire, you'd think Porter Moser's got to be the first guy you call.
Yeah.
And you have a really hard time turning down a Duke job, which is the most prestigious job in college basketball. But as I knew, it was very unrealistic to even talk about him coming to Iowa State, just because you know that in the upcoming years he's going to be available for literally any job that comes up, because he is such a good coach. The fact that people weren't surprised when they knocked off the hottest team in the country by 13 shows how good of a coach
Yeah, exactly.
that Moser is. Another Cinderella team, I'd consider them a Cinderella, but also in the same way that Loyola is. It's not surprising that they're in the Sweet 16, but Syracuse,
Yeah.
led by Jim Boeheim's son, Buddy, who is just going insane in the tournament.
Yeah.
Aaron and I both picked San Diego State to make it to the Elite Eight, and we were just watching the game demoralized as Buddy Boeheim went for 30, and they beat San Diego State by 16, and it wasn't that close.
No.
It was a 30-point game, and we turned it off.
Yep. Yeah, they're just, you always see, they're always a good team, but they barely sneak into the to the bracket this year. And just like recent years in 2018, 2016, you see them as a double-digit seed, making a run. I think both those years they made the Final Four. This year they got a good shot at making the Final Four again. Houston, they're a good team, but they're not one of the greatest 2 seeds.
They struggled with Rutgers.
Yeah, they're not one of the greatest 2 seeds we've ever seen. And with Jim Boeheim and Buddy Boeheim, that's a coach-son duo, father-son duo. That's one of the best to ever do it. It kind of reminds me of Greg McDermott and Doug McDermott. They run their offense through Buddy. Buddy, he's got a quick release. He's very efficient when he scores. He doesn't force shots. He likes to get his teammates involved. So like that, that's just hard. That's hard to beat. Most teams like Houston aren't used to seeing a 2-3 zone. You see almost every college basketball team nowadays playing man. So it's not a surprise to see all these teams struggle, to against the zone. You don't see teams go to the middle of the zone and try to operate their offense to the getting in the middle, because they all want to do it 1v1 or do it themselves. You got to play more of team basketball when you play Syracuse, because you have to pass the ball more, get in the middle of the zone, drive, kick. That's how you create open shots. You're not going to get good shots just standing the ball, passing the ball around the perimeter. You got to get it in the middle of the zone, and that's what teams haven't been doing. So you see Syracuse having a very easy time playing defense and running their offense through Buddy and through fast break points off turnovers.
Yeah, and Buddy is shooting 59% from the floor and 56% from 3, while averaging. This is during the tournament, not throughout the whole season. While averaging 27.5 a game.
Yeah.
Which I think if somehow there, God forbid, if there was a COVID outbreak in the bubble and everyone had to go home and you just canceled the tournament and you still hand out an MVP, I think Buddy Boeheim is the tournament MVP as of this point. Either him or Max Amos, I would say, have been equally spectacular. But Syracuse, I'm super excited, and I don't want to jinx it, because usually when I say I'm excited for a matchup, it never ends up happening. But Syracuse and Loyola in the Elite Eight, I think, would be awesome. Just the differing styles. As you said, Syracuse has always played the zone. It's just Jim Boeheim's staple. But they also play a super high-paced, high-efficient offense. Led by one of the most efficient players in the country. And then Loyola just plays a ground and pound, beat you in a 55-50 game. So it'd be a very, very conflicting style with 2 of the best coaches in college basketball right now. And Jim Boeheim's obviously one of the best of all time, and I think in 20 years we're talking about Moser in a similar class to we talk about Boeheim.
Yep.
So there's a couple matchups that we've talked about. Another, I think, super compelling matchup in the Sweet 16 is going to be Michigan and Florida. Florida State. Florida State is one of the most athletic teams that has ever been seen in college basketball. They've got a top 10 draft pick who comes off their bench. That's just how talented they are. I think they had the most impressive win of the round of 32 and an 18-point win over Colorado. Colorado destroyed Georgetown in the first round and shot like 65%. And Florida State completely shut them down. When I was watching, Colorado was shooting less than 30% from the floor. They ended up shooting 35%. But Florida State is one of the most athletically gifted teams in the tournament, one of the most athletically gifted teams in college basketball. And I'd almost compare them to how Texas Tech was in 2019 when they went to the national championship with Jarrett Culver, and they had so many just big names. Zaire, oh gosh, what was his name?
Smith.
Yeah, Zaire Smith. They were like just long, athletic, could shut anyone down, and that's what I'd compare Florida State to, which I think is a great matchup against Michigan.
Yeah, they give Michigan like a good matchup. Yeah, I'd say. I don't know. It's kind of a similar. The teams are kind of similar to each other. I'd say. There's 5 good players on the floor at all times. One thing that is a disadvantage for Michigan is that they don't have one of their better players, Isaiah Livers. But at this point, it's really no excuse anymore. They've played 2 games without him. They beat a very good LSU team. LSU, I thought, was underseeded. They were one of the best 8 seeds in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
They're a very good team, so I'm not putting that game past Michigan. That's a very good win for them. Florida State won in pretty much dominating fashion against Colorado, a team that I had losing to Georgetown anyway, but I also had Florida State losing to UNC Greensboro. And UNC Greensboro did give Florida State a fight as one of your better mid-majors. But, yeah, Florida State, they start a lot of veterans, and then they bring off that guy that you said, Scotty Barnes, top 10 prospect. He's a fiery player. But that's going to be a good game. I don't know who I'm taking in that one. 2 good coaches, Leonard Hamilton and Juwan Howard. It's going to be a good matchup. I don't know Florida State that well. Obviously, I was watching their games, but I don't think they have that big of a guy for. Do they have a big post player that's pretty dominant?
They play almost similar to what team am I thinking of? They play similar to Oregon, where they just have like 5 dudes who are 6'6".
Yeah.
And they play positionless basketball. That's kind of how Florida State plays. They do have a center. His name is Balsa Koprica. He's a sophomore. He's 7'1", so he'll be the matchup, obviously, to go against all 4 of Michigan's big guys down low. But other than that, they play pretty much 4 wings.
Okay.
Which is, I think, a really fun style of basketball to watch.
Yeah.
The bottom of that bracket, UCLA, which has been one of the most impressive teams of the tournament, just because I don't remember what I was doing, but I left the UCLA Michigan State playing game just like, oh, Michigan State's up 12 or 13, whatever, it's over. And I got an alert that UCLA came back and won. Then they went out and looked like just the complete better team against BYU. It wasn't an upset at all. They were just better, which I think a lot of people predicted BYU to lose.
Yeah, we actually had to leave that. We had our intramural game.
That's right, yep.
So we left on that Thursday because we had practice during the Drake one, so we didn't get to watch that. Well, we got to watch the end of it, and then we didn't get to really watch a majority of the second half for Michigan State, UCLA.
But yeah, UCLA, I mean, they came out, beat BYU handily, and then they had the typical win against the 14 seed in the second round. That's what makes the Oral Roberts win against Florida more impressive than I think their win against Ohio State, is just because those teams that catch fire in a bottle for one game usually come out and just get smoked the next game.
Yeah.
I remember the year Iowa State lost to UAB. UAB played, it was an 11 seed in the second round, and the 11 seed just destroyed them. And that's what you tend to expect with those games. So Oral Robert winning is impressive. But UCLA is coached by Mike Cronin, the former Cincinnati coach, who is a very fiery dude.
Yeah, he's
always
after it.
been. But he will, I think he'll establish pretty good basketball in Southern California for UCLA. But in all honesty, I don't really give them much of a shot against Alabama. Alabama, they were pretty tight with Iona the entire game. Caleb Vasquez picked Iona in that one for some reason. But Alabama came out and had arguably the most impressive win of the second round, just beating Maryland, a team that was pretty hot by over 20 points. I thought that game was going to be closer. I thought it was going to be a 5 or 6 point game. And Alabama put up 96, the most in Alabama tournament history.
Yeah, I can actually. I can see that with Alabama. They're a 3-point. They rely on the 3-point shot. And if they just get hot, I mean, they just don't stop.
Mm-hmm.
So like they just get going, and then that just happens. I can see that being like the same exact thing with UCLA. Like if they get hot, they could just blow them out of the water, and it just all of a sudden they're just right there. But if they don't, then you see a very closer game. But still, they rely on the 3-point shot, but they have other options to score. So it's a pretty they're pretty consistent with what they do. It's not like a team you should be scared to pick because if they're not hot, what's going to happen? Because if they're not hot, they usually come out and find other ways to score, and they're very good at getting themselves going and getting to the free throw line and just expanding their game to where they can start shooting threes and feeling more confident about it. But yeah, I think they've had a favorable way all the way through. Even with this game, they haven't played a single-digit seed team yet. Maryland was obviously pretty good, but they're an average team. I mean, I expected a little bit of a closer game. I still thought Alabama would win, and I think this is going to be the same again this weekend, where Alabama, you could see them blow them out, but I bet they beat them by between 8 and 10 points. Like they're just never going to be really a close game.
This is probably the one Sweet 16 game that I'm going to be disappointed if someone doesn't win. Like if UCLA wins, I will not look forward to them playing the winner of Michigan-Florida State. Like that would be the one elite game that I just would be like, I don't really know if I want to watch it. But no matter who Alabama plays, if they win, I think it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, I agree.
Whether they play Michigan or Florida State, that's going to be like the game of the Elite Eight that you just have to watch.
Yeah.
Like I think back to what it was, Kentucky UCLA a few years back, one of the best elite games ever.
That was a really good game.
Oh gosh, what was it? Whoever Loyola beat to get to the Final Four, it might have been Villanova actually.
I don't know.
But yeah, the Elite Eight is my favorite round just because that's where you get like normally the best teams playing, and I would be mildly disappointed if UCLA made it just because I don't think that they play an enjoyable style of basketball compared to Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side, I think I'd feel the same way if Houston won, but not to the same extent. Just because I want to see Syracuse go far, just because they're fun to watch and they're a cool story. The region that we haven't really talked about a lot is the West. Gonzaga, I mean, they looked like Gonzaga. Oklahoma played so well against them, and they still lost by 16.
Yeah.
Austin Reeves dropped, I think, 28 points and just looked like complete control in the game, but they still lost to Gonzaga by 16. They're insane. Drew Timme might be the MVP of the tournament to this point. He just looks dominant and in control no matter what circumstances. Jalen Suggs has to be the best defensive player in the entire bracket. But
yeah, they got players all around. Like Creighton Creighton can play their best game, and they're not even gonna. It shouldn't even be a good game. Like I don't see a game. I don't even see USC or Oregon being able to put up a fight with them. I would want to see the USC and Gonzaga. I think
just because it's
Evan Mobley and
probably the best player remaining in the tournament.
Yeah, I would definitely the most NBA ready player in the tournament. So, but I don't see. I think whoever they meet up in the Final Four will be a decent game just because it's the Final Four, but it would not shock me in the least if they just, throughout the whole tournament, win the national championship in just easy fashion, like not have a game even be in single digits. Like that's just how they are. Like they're that dominant. They feel that good about themselves. Like it's just like I've never seen really anything like this. It's almost like that. It reminds me of the Anthony Davis year with Kentucky where they lost you can call it a fluke game, whatever, against Indiana early in the year. Obviously, Gonzaga didn't lose, but then they just rolled their way through the tournament. Like, that's just something I think that could happen. And the one team I honestly thought that could beat them would have been Illinois, and now they're out. Maybe Baylor can put up a good fight with them. Baylor's pretty good too, but we'll see. Baylor gives them their best bet.
Yeah, you have to just because it's the last undefeated team, but you have to compare it to Kentucky in 2015. But that Kentucky team relied so much on the one and done
Yeah.
that it was like if one of these freshmen kind of has a bad game and it just destroys himself mentally and takes other guys out of it, you could see him losing. Frank Kaminsky in Wisconsin knocked him off. It was a lot of people predicted that just because you put up this veteran team in Wisconsin against the young and outstanding Kentucky team. But this
Yep.
year it's the opposite, where Gonzaga's the veteran team. Like Drew Timmy's been there for 3 years. Corey Kispert's been there. I think Kispert is a senior. Jalen Suggs is the exception as a one and done, but he's one of the most under control freshmen I think I've ever seen in college basketball, just with how his style of play is. I'd compare him almost to like a Tyrese Halliburton type player, where he's not going to do anything that just like always makes you like wowed, but he never like makes the
Yeah.
wrong play. Like he's just cool, he's in control, and he's one of the best defensive guards we've ever seen, leading to, I mean, I think the best college basketball team
Yeah.
that I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a lot like that Kentucky team, and then another team that it reminds me of would be the 2014-2015 Duke team when they won the whole thing. They had Jahlil Okafor,
Yep.
Tyus Jones, Justice Winslow. That kind of were their basis freshmen. But then you had Quinn Cook, who was a great guard, and then Grayson Allen come off the bench. Emil Jefferson, who was a great forward as well. Like you just had your mix of your young and old, and that's kind of what you see from Gonzaga, what they're doing. They got Kispert's, obviously they kind of play through him. He's their scorer. But then you see Suggs on defense and Drew Timme just doing his thing, and Joel Ajayi is a good defensive guard, and Andrew Nebhard. Yeah, it's insane. It's great what Mark Few's doing with that team, and I don't see it stopping anytime soon. Sounds like they're going to get this Chet Holmgren guy. It's either who's the number one recruit out of this upcoming year's class. He's either going to Gonzaga or going to the G League. So it's not going to stop anytime soon, I don't think. So
No, they do not look like they're on any path to stop being dominant, and they have no competition out there.
Nope.
The Gonzaga, so we can talk about this in a little bit, but Gonzaga itself is a bigger brand than the entire Pac-12 combined.
Yeah.
I'd still say UCLA is the biggest brand in the Pac-12, even though Oregon has been like the best program for probably the last 10 years. But UCLA still has the most national championships of any team, so they still hold a big brand. But I would say Gonzaga outweighs the entire Pac-12 of UCLA, USC, Oregon, all those teams combined. So they don't really have competition out there for recruits because, yes, it can happen. Kansas can sometimes come poach a recruit from California, or Duke, Kentucky can come in there. But Gonzaga, especially after this run, is going to be the first choice until Mark Few retires.
Yep.
And that it's kind of a scary monopoly where all of the basketball power resides in the Midwest and the East, but there's one power that's out there in the West that's taken all the players, and Gonzaga is a well-oiled machine that is going to be a power to come. And I just think it's their time, which
Yep.
is something that's terrifying to say in March, because usually when you say that, that's when the shocking happens.
Yeah, but yeah, it's hard to see it now, but obviously it could happen. Anything can happen in March Madness, but yeah, it's hard to pick against them is kind of the thing.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to take a break, and we'll come back and talk more March Madness. We both could talk March Madness for hours and hours and hours, but we are going to take about a 4-minute break just to play a song, catch our breath, and we will be back shortly. Hello, and welcome back to A Dorm Divided on 88.9 KSTM, The Storm. It was a good half hour of March Madness talk, and we've got some more in store for you. We've pretty much just been looking over the bracket, chatting about some games that intrigued us, caught our eye, and there's a lot that we haven't even touched on. USC we haven't talked about once. They have been, one of the most impressive teams of the tournament. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know why I picked Kansas over them.
Yeah, I don't know either. I did. They've dominated both their games. USC has. They're good. Wow.
Evan Mobley is a stud.
Mm-hmm.
But they beat Kansas by 34 points on Monday night, which is no one beats Bill Self like that in March.
No.
When Bill Self loses in March, he gets upset. Like a team like UNI knocks him off because Ali Frokanash goes crazy, or they tend to lose to number 1 seeds by like 4 or 5. Like they tend to get beat by Dukes or the Kentuckys of the world. They never get beat by 30 by a team that was seeded lower than them.
Yeah.
And honestly, so USC got underseeded for sure.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. But it's honestly better to be a 6 seed than a 5 seed, in my opinion.
Yeah, because you avoid the 1 seeds in the Sweet 16. So
yeah, because there's a very good chance that if they were a 5 seed, they could be playing Baylor or Gonzaga this weekend, or even Michigan. And I think they're in clearly a much better situation playing USC.
Playing Oregon.
Or playing Oregon, sorry, than they are any of the 1 seeds. But even if they were playing Iowa, like I think they're still in a much better position than they would be in any other scenario. So even though USC was underseeded, easily the most underseeded in the tournament other than maybe Loyola, they're in a very good position. I think they beat Oregon, but it's going to be a close game. And I guess I haven't even looked to see how many times they played during the regular season. So their first time they're supposed to play was postponed, and then they beat Oregon by 14 the one time they played. And they didn't meet in the conference tournament or anything like that. So they just played once in the regular season, and they beat Oregon. And I don't think you can make much out of one game in February. But that's the only conference-on-conference matchup in the Sweet 16, which is one of those ones that you can't really predict.
Yeah, it's hard to do that
when you're making your bracket, just because you're going to have teams that have the possibility to meet in the Sweet 16 just to make the brackets work. But those are 2 Pac-12 teams in there, and then UCLA and Oregon State also made it, which I did not see that coming.
No, they didn't lose the Pac-12 didn't lose. I thought the Pac-12 was going to be terrible.
So did I.
They were terrible throughout the whole season. Like they just weren't that good. They had a few teams ranked, and if they were ranked, they were ranked in like the 20s. And then they didn't get any loss until I think Colorado lost, and that would have been it.
That's still their only loss.
Yeah. So Oregon State was a huge shocker. UCLA too. Yeah. That's hats off to them, I guess. They had all those people doubting them, so good for them.
So while we're on the topic of the Pac-12, they knocked off Oklahoma State in Cade Cunningham, which I thought he was so disappointing. He did not have the tournament that I wanted him to have at all. He scored 24 against Oregon State, but it was on 6 of 20 shooting. So Oklahoma State did not look good. They snuck past Liberty. It was still a 9-point win, but it wasn't dominating at all, and then they were just dominated by Oregon State the entire game. It wasn't even close. Cade Cunningham didn't look good, so we both said like our most anticipated matchup of the tournament was going to be Oklahoma State, Illinois in the Sweet 16, and neither team made it.
We didn't even get to see it.
Which is why we have to be careful of saying which ones are intriguing us the most now, because
we don't know what's going to happen.
When you say
it jinxes it almost. You want it to happen, so you can't say it. But yeah.
So I say we kind of get into game-by-game predictions. I know we already made some.
Yeah.
But we'll start in the West. Gonzaga-Creighton. I think Gonzaga wins by 15, and anything less than that is a disappointment.
Yeah, I would agree. Creighton's kind of they got to play UCSB. They've played 2 double-digit seeded teams. They're just kind of there. No one is really talking about them right now. So for them to get their name out there, they're going to have to pull off a big upset against Gonzaga, but I don't see that happening. I do like Greg McDermott as a coach. He's a good coach. He's going to have his guys ready, but even though you have your guys ready, you got to do way more than that. I mean, you got to have a lot of things go your way to beat Gonzaga. Even when Gonzaga is playing a bad game, like, you got to be on your best no matter what. So I really don't. I can't say I'm looking forward to that game. I mean, obviously I'll watch it because I'll watch all the Sweet 16 games, but it's a game that I don't see getting. I mean, the first 10 minutes are going to be the best part because that's when the game's going to be the closest, but I think it's going to get out of hand, and it could get out of hand very quickly.
This is a game, I don't know if you remember this, that I would compare when Iowa State played Virginia in the Sweet 16 in 2016. No, 2015 for George Niang's senior year. Iowa State played Arkansas Little Rock in the first round, beat them, and then Iona upset Purdue. So Iowa State played two lower seeds as a 5 seed to get, or as a 4 seed to get to the Sweet 16, but they ran into a team that they were just nowhere near as good as, which is exactly how Creighton is in comparison to Gonzaga. Creighton's a good team, but their style, I guess, no style matches up against Gonzaga, and Creighton will be no different. So I think Gonzaga wins by 15. USC and Oregon. Who do you have in that one?
I'm going to take USC in this one, but I actually think this is going to be a really good game. I'm looking forward to this game. I think it's going to be a good one.
This might be the best Sweet 16 matchup.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of them that are going to be actually pretty good. I'm actually looking forward to all of them. I would say I'm looking forward to all of them. Loyola, Chicago, and Oregon State don't jump out at you, but they're two hot teams right now who weren't supposed to be where they are. Mm-hmm. So that's going to automatically be a good game. And then Arkansas and Oral Roberts might not jump out at you too, but they're a 15 seed looking to make they'd be the first 15 seed ever to make the Elite Eight. So I think the only game I can't say I'm looking forward to would be Gonzaga Creighton because I think it's just going to be a blowout. But I think Oregon USC is going to be a good one. Two kind of just mid-seeded teams. Both got upsets in the last round.
Both hot.
Yep, both playing well. Both got Oregon's got the Pac-12 Player of the Year. USC's obviously got Evan Mobley, so it's gonna be. I think it is gonna be a good game. Hopefully it's not. It's a little bit closer than the 14-point USC win that they got back in February, and I think it will be. So I think it's gonna be a high scoring game as well. But yeah, looking forward to that one. But I'm gonna take USC.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll with USC too, just because of Evan Mobley, and I mean both teams are playing exceptionally well. Oregon as 7 seed looked like the 2 seed against Iowa, and USC the 6 seed looked like the 3 seed against Kansas. So they're both playing like two of the best teams in the country, and I think that we'll get a game that reflects that. Down on the east end of the bracket, it is Michigan and Florida State. I think this might be the first one where we differ. Who do you have winning?
I got Michigan in this one.
I'm going to take Florida State just with how good they looked last round. But Michigan also had one of the more underrated wins in the tournament. LSU was, I didn't think LSU was a lock to beat Michigan, but I thought LSU was a lock to make it a close game.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to catch the end of it because we had our intramural basketball game. But LSU had the game tied with under 10 minutes to go, and Michigan pulled it out, gritted out a win without one of their best players.
Yeah, they played well all year too. They're another team, and they got upset early in the Big Ten tournament. So I think that's where people were like, okay, well they're not playing hot, they're not playing too good. They might get bounced early, but it's just kind of like a reverse psychological thing. You know what I mean? Like you got teams playing hot that are going to continue to play hot, that you think are going to continue to play hot in the tournament, and then they get beat, like Illinois and Texas. And like Georgetown, who won the Big East, but then you got these teams like Michigan, and Florida State. Honestly, Florida State I think lost in the championship. Michigan got upset by Ohio State in the semifinal, and both of their respective conferences. So it's going to be a good game. Both teams are playing well. I think Michigan has the edge. They've played a tougher opponent than Florida State has. I think LSU is better than Colorado.
I'd agree with that.
And UNC Greensboro, so they've had more of a tougher matchup. But I like Dickinson. I like their two guards, Brooks and Smith, and I like Franz Wagner. They're a team that they've been playing together and well for the past pretty much the whole year, even into last year too. So I'm taking Michigan in this one.
Yeah, Michigan has been one of the best teams in the country all year, but I'm just going to go with my gut instinct on this with Florida State winning.
Mm-hmm.
Florida State is so dominant on defense. They average 7 steals a game, 5 blocks, and they pass the ball really well. They're efficient. They're the team like Colorado that just does everything right, and that's why I feel comfortable picking them.
Yeah.
But this is, like, to me, this is a coin flip, and Vegas feels the same way. It's just a 2.5-point spread in favor of Michigan. The bottom end of the bracket, UCLA, Alabama. I think Alabama rolls. I think this might be similar to Gonzaga Creighton for me, where I just don't think it's going to be a good game. I think Alabama wins by 20 to 25 points.
Yeah, I would agree, but I can just see if Alabama gets hot, then it's not going to be a good game at all. I like this matchup more than Gonzaga Creighton, and I am still actually looking forward to it just because UCLA's been playing well. They upset BYU and then just took care of business against Albion Christian. And so this is kind of a game for them to kind of prove that they can still play and that, don't bet against them. I still am taking Bama. I think Bama wins this game by like 10, but I think it's going to be a back and forth game until about the end of the second half where you see Bama pull away.
Up in the south, or I guess down in the south, even though it's all being played in Indianapolis, they should have come up with different names for the regions.
Yeah.
It didn't really do it any justice. Baylor is taking on Villanova. Villanova's down their top player in Connor. Is it Connor?
Yeah, Connor
Gillespie. Jeremiah Earl
Robinson
is still playing at a very high level, one of the best players in college basketball. And I feel dumb picking Winthrop just because Jay Wright coaches this team, and Jay Wright's one of the best coaches in college basketball. They should have been a lock for the Sweet 16. I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Even down Gillespie. But I think they are going to run into a bit of a wall against Baylor missing Gillespie just because Baylor, all of their best players are made up of guards.
Yeah.
Like everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Butler, Maceo Teague, Mark Vidal. All those guys are guards that are tough as nails that can all do it all over the field or all over the court. So as well coached as Villanova is and as good of a story as they are, I don't really think they stand too big of a chance against Baylor. I think you might disagree with me, though.
I think they'll stand a chance. I don't think they're going to win. I want to pick them to win, but Baylor is playing well too. They beat Wisconsin by 13 points. I thought it was a much closer game than the score indicated, though. But yeah, they got that Meyer guy that comes off the bench who just strokes it, and he's a flamethrower. He doesn't care either. He'll come out and fire away even if he misses his first 3 shots. He's still going to keep shooting. So I kind of like that about him. And then yeah, you got your gritty guards in there who are going to come out and battle, and then obviously they're led by Jared Butler, who's one of the best players in the country, All-American, and yeah, especially down Gillespie, it's hard to pick. I don't want to pick against Villanova, even though I did it in the first round, but I'm going to pick against them here in a close game. I think it's going to be close. But yeah, credit to them. I don't want to count them out, and I'm not going to count them out. I'm not going to come into this game expecting Baylor to win, but I do think that Baylor, if I had to pick a team, I would pick Baylor.
So Arkansas, Oral Roberts, I think Arkansas wins, but I think it's close. I just think the risky part about this game is how hot Oral Roberts can get, but also how cold they can get. So this could be the one where the Cinderella just doesn't make their shots and they get beat by 25. But I think they're going to make their shots, but Arkansas is good enough defensively to shut them down in crunch time.
Arkansas might be my favorite team left in the tournament. I don't know why. I love Moses Moody. I think he's a great player. I hope he plays on my Thunder next year. That would be awesome. I just love the way he plays. They got a bunch of players all around the court too that are pretty good. I think they dominate this game. I don't like saying that though, because you don't want to pick against a Cinderella team. Everyone's cheering for a Cinderella like Oral Roberts and I. But yeah, I've had Arkansas in the Final Four since the beginning. I wish I would have picked them farther to go because I like them that much. But yeah, I'm taking Arkansas on this one.
What's impressive about Arkansas or I guess this region as a whole, I think, assuming Oral Roberts doesn't make the Final Four, I think that's a pretty safe assumption. Whatever team wins this, I think, is going to the championship. Because I just in the region below the Midwest, you've got Loyola, Oregon State, Syracuse, Houston. I don't think any of those teams beat Baylor, Arkansas, or Villanova.
Mm-hmm.
So, whoever comes out of the South, I would say, just has a date set up with Gonzaga. So that's a pretty promising endorsement, I would say. But yeah, I think Arkansas wins, but it's closer than anticipated.
Okay.
And by closer than anticipated, I don't mean 1 point. I'm thinking like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But I don't think Arkansas is going to win by 25 like a lot of people do.
Okay.
And then in the Midwest, you've got Loyola and Oregon State. This is probably the game of the weekend other than maybe Oregon USC. I think both these teams are evenly matched. They're both the underdog, and it's just going to be just a ground and pound game. I think Loyola is the better team. They're the higher seeded team. They've got the number 1 defensive efficiency in the entire country. So I think they're going to be able to control the game, but Oregon State's going to be able to hang around. But I'm going to go with Loyola in a close one, like a 5-point game to go to their second Elite Eight in the last 3 years, which is just crazy.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. I think that they win by like 4 to 6 points in a close game throughout. Game's gonna be tied with maybe a minute left. You see maybe Loyola make a shot, then Oregon miss a shot, and then free throws kind of make the game a bigger margin than it was seen to be. So I'm gonna agree with you on that one. I don't. Oregon State's run ends there. No one obviously expected them to make the tournament, but I'll give credit to where it's due. Good for them, but Oregon or Loyola Chicago's got the better player, better coach. Sometimes that's hard to beat.
And give credit to Oregon State, picked last in the Pac-12 before the season.
Yeah, and they got like 8th in the seeded, so they have like the 3rd worst team, and here they are. So.
Yeah, so incredible story to make it to the Sweet 16, and they very well could be in the Final Four too. So just because we're picking against them doesn't mean their run's over. They've got I'd say a very evenly matched game against Loyola. And then on the bottom side of the bracket, Syracuse against Houston. And I'll be honest, I still don't know that much about Houston. I know they've got Quentin Grimes, who used to play for Kansas, but I just haven't watched a lot of their basketball this year. I know they're good, but Rutgers gave them a big run for their money.
Rutgers was winning the whole game, and then towards the end, like Rutgers started struggling, and they had a game-winning shot that just kind of rimmed out, and Houston caught a break. So I'm gonna take. This is gonna be a good game. It's gonna be another good game, maybe even a low-scoring game. We've seen the last couple times though Syracuse put up some big numbers and points. Buddy Boeheim's probably gonna drop 25 again. This is how he's gonna operate. This is how he's been playing. But yeah, I'm taking Syracuse in the upset, and I think it's almost a safe upset too. I feel pretty good about that one.
The one thing that I found you always have to do in March, if you're not sure, just go with the coach you trust more.
Mm-hmm.
Kelvin Sampson's a very good coach for Houston, don't get me wrong, but Jim Boeheim is a Hall of Fame top 7 or 8 coach of all time, I think. So when you're picking the best coach, I don't even know if it's necessarily an upset pick, because when you get this far in the tournament, you kind of just have to reseed the teams anyway. And I would argue that Syracuse, if you reseeded the tournament today, Syracuse would be seeded ahead of Houston.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Syracuse in a moderately close game. I think it's going to be a very good game, and it's going to be exciting to see Buddy Boeheim hopefully go off.
Yeah.
But this could also be one of those games that just lets you down and is not at all what you think. So
yeah. Yep.
That's what's so tough about March to predict. And then just a quick rapid fire, we'll go through our Elite Eight predictions, and then we'll save our Final Four in-depth talk for next week.
Okay.
But Gonzaga, USC, I'm going to go Gonzaga, although I think USC, of all the team, might give them the best run for their money.
Yeah, I would agree on that one. I think it's going to be, if we get this matchup, that'll be a pretty decent game. I think it's going to be one of the closest games that Gonzaga's had, but I think it's going to turn out to be and they just like the West Coast Conference Championship was when BYU was right there, even winning pretty much the whole game, and then the last 5 minutes you see Jalen Suggs go off, hit 3 threes in a row. Now all of a sudden it's a 9-point game. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to be Jalen Suggs who does that, but I can see Gonzaga just doing that in general and making this game not look like a game, even though it was the whole time.
Yeah, and on the East region, you had Michigan winning, I had Florida State winning. I'm going to pick Alabama over either of those teams, I think. I think Alabama's just that type of streaky team. They remind me a lot of those mid-2010s Kentucky teams with, like, I think of the Harrison Twins team.
Yeah.
Just, you want the team that's going to hit more shots, and I think Alabama is the best shot-making team in the tournament, not named Gonzaga or Baylor.
Yeah. I would I think Michigan beats them if they make it past Florida State, but I do think whoever wins the Florida State Michigan game, I think that's the team who makes the Final Four.
Really?
Yeah, I think both those teams. I actually do think that both those teams are really good. It's a shame that they have to meet up in the Sweet 16. I think Alabama is really good too, but to keep shooting like that, like the way they have been for a number amount of times, it's hard to do.
It's hard to sustain for
Yeah.
sure.
It's hard to do, and we haven't seen a game from them where they've shot bad and scored other ways. Like, we haven't seen that in the tournament because they've shot well the tournament, like their first two games. So we got to see. I still got to see how they battle that adversity when they're not making shots. But I'm taking Michigan to go to the Final Four in that region.
So then we both picked Baylor, Arkansas for the Elite Eight up there. I'm sticking with my bracket that had Baylor winning, but it's I think it'll be a closer game than I anticipated it being. I thought Baylor was a significantly better team than Arkansas, but after watching Arkansas play in the second half against Colgate, where they just got crazy hot, and then also watching them pull off a very tough and gritty win over Tech in the round of 32, I'm going to pick Baylor by just a slight margin.
Yeah, I'm actually going to stick with my bracket too, who I had Arkansas making the Final Four. I think Arkansas beats Baylor in that one, and that's, if we get to see this matchup, that would be a really good game, one that I would be looking forward to say the least. But yeah, that's going to be an upset pick for me. I think Arkansas somehow, some way gets that one done. I'm hoping they do. It's just rolling with my gut on. I don't want to sway away from what I picked, back last Monday. So.
And in the Midwest region, of the four teams that are left, I think it's impressive if anyone picked any of those four teams to be in the Final Four. Mm-hmm. Even Houston. I think even if you had Houston in the Final Four, they're a 2 seed. I still think that's impressive because I don't know what the number was, but I think 76% of brackets had Illinois in the Final Four, something like that. So I'm going to go with Loyola. I honestly think Loyola is going to do it again. Cameron Krutwig's awesome, but this is really just kind of throwing darts in the dark here. Yeah. It's just a guess. These are all just wild card teams playing against each other in the same region. I'm glad they're on the same region because that's what's going to make for the best basketball.
Yeah.
But just with my gut and probably my heart, I'm going to go with Loyola Chicago.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick. Oh gosh, I don't know. If we get to see this Loyola Chicago Syracuse game, that would be just awesome.
Yeah, that's my dream.
That's what everyone wants. I think that would be one of the greatest games, Elite Eight games that we've seen in a while, and one that no one ever predicted. But if we do get to see it, I don't want to jinx myself. But if we do, I'm gonna go with Syracuse in that one. Gosh, it's gonna be a battle of veteran players who've been there, like Boeheim and Krutwig. Obviously, players who've played two different positions, but players who run majority of their
similar culture.
Yep, majority of their offense. Two great coaches. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Syracuse on that one, just because I know I like Jim Boeheim. I like Buddy. But yeah, it would be hard. It's one that I don't want to pick. But if we're here right now, my life depended on it, I would go with Syracuse.
Well, I think that's going to do it for our hour of March Madness talk on A Dorm Divided here at Simpson College on 88.9 KSTM The Storm. Games don't start until Saturday, unfortunately, so we've still got a couple days to wait. I thought they were starting tomorrow, and I checked
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I thought it was going to go back to normal schedule too, but it didn't.
but it's not. So I checked my phone and saw Saturday, so that's a little disappointing. But nonetheless, we're going to get college basketball this weekend at some point, and I cannot wait. But for Aaron Price and Jake Bren, we're going to sound off, and we want to say Happy March. It's the best time of the year, the best sports week of the entire year, and I don't even think it's particularly close, but this is a Dorm Divided on 88.9 KSTM The Storm.